Hello, my name is Paul Oddie, and we're doing the Behind the Scenes Location Management Team research pitch. And for our locations, I have scouted out Russia. The country of Russia is a very large and expanse area that goes from Asia all the way over to the Arctic Ocean. Now, it actually covers 38 regions and 9 time zones, so there's a lot of area that you can cover and look into, especially since we're looking for different locations that are going to be contrast to the United States. Um, so Russia would actually be a great fit for that, encompassing over 10 million square miles. That's 17 million kilometers. Russia goes, like I said, from Eastern Europe all the way over to the North Pacific Ocean, extending the Arctic Ocean as well. It is currently 1.8% bigger than the United States, times the size of the United States. So, what is it like over there? And the first thing everybody's going to think of is it is cold over there. Well, yes, it is, and that's of course, thank you Siberia and the frozen tundra. Needless to say, if the Packers ever have to play over in Russia, I think they would do just well. But climates change from humid to subarctic, and the winters vary from cool to absolutely frigid. Because remember, you're going up from the Arctic seas all the way down towards where China is at. So your climate degrees are going to vary, and many summers vary from the warm aspects in the steppes all the way over to the cool along the Arctic coast. So yeah, of course it's going to be cold. But depending on when filming starts production, then we can make all these climates work in our favors. So the government of Russia is a semi-presidential federation. A lot of people would prefer to say, oh, it's a dictatorship. No, actually, it's a semi-presidential federation, and works very close to kind of how our own government works, not in terms of a democracy, but it is a presidential federation. So it's not like our president, where he serves, anywhere from a one to two-term presidential, from 4 years to 8 years. The president just serves until retirement. So the Russian ruble is the form of currency that they currently have, and it has a very high exchange rate in terms of the U.S. dollar. So if we were to start filming a location over there, we're going to have an excellent exchange rate to work in our favor, so that we can be able to move production as smooth as possible if, like I said, we choose to go over there. So the gross domestic product, which is they usually deal with oil, natural gas. Those are their top exporters. They're moving about 3.417 trillion, and that's right now, that's in U.S. dollars, in terms of their domestic product, GDP. However, with the sanctions that have happened against Russia in 2015, that is steadily on the decline. I mean, per capita, we're looking at a drop, as you can see in 2013, it dropped from 6922.79 all the way down to 68.43. And that's scheduled to that continued to decrease in 2015, and is expected to decrease all the way through 2016. Like I said, that's because of all the tariffs and sanctions that's been put on Russia in terms of the oil situation that happened, especially with what happened with Ukraine. One of the big issues that we're going to have we're going to run into is that everybody thinks the United States is in a fight with Russia. Majority of Russians that were interviewed thought that the United States and the Ukraine were most unfriendly against Russia in terms of politics. That we were most unfriendly. Now, since it's a political matter, maybe so. Yes, there has been political issues in which even Joe Biden said, "I looked in Boris Yeltsin's eyes and Putin's eyes and saw no soul." But that's the political side. Now, if we were to sit there and go over to Russia, make a film, show the Russian people, show the Russian culture, I think we'd be more entitled to sway the opinion. of both the Russian people and the American people. We've got a great action flick, and I think if we were to really showcase that culture, it might truly make a difference. The labor force is what that keeps the Russians going is agricultural, but mostly industries. And like I said, their major exports are oils, natural gases, metals, mostly aluminum. So they got a very high industry. However, with that came a lot of high pollution rates. So that's something we may want to take in consideration when it turns to filming. We may want to stay away from the more industrial complex areas if we want to shoot, say, more of the rural scenes or the outside scenes. So if you want to stay away from if you want to stay away from the major cities and maybe go towards the suburbs. Like I said, their major exports: oil, natural gas, wood products, metals. All that is what they go, and they get and it is a very um, high rate of exports. We're talking about $3+ million in terms of in terms of exported goods. But however, since the tariffs and the sanctions that went against Russia in terms of their oil, that has kind of been on the decline. But Russia's in hopes that maybe some of those tariffs will be lifted and they'll be able to increase their exports of oil and get their GDP back up on the rise. They do import a lot of machine material. They import meats, fruits, vegetables, and the reason being is that they have having to import a lot of meats, fruits, and vegetables is because given the size of Russia and how the soil is not conducive for that type of growth, it makes farming very, very difficult. So they are going to have to import a lot of foods. Now, if we're talking about the imported foods and we're going to have to buy all that, that's going to probably raise the cost in terms of feeding the crews and getting everybody set up with food and everything else. So that's something we may want to consider, if not bringing over our own food instead. One of their major forms of transportation are railroads. You're over 14 million miles of railroad is what we've got, and that also is going to get us through a lot of mountain passes and everything else in which it would be too expensive to fly to any of the remote locations. So using their railroads would probably be the wisest thing to do to move our gear, our equipment, and all personnel throughout Russia, especially when you're talking about the Siberian area, is using their railroads. So when we're talking about setting up this movie and the locations that we're looking at, there are tons of rural area, Eastern European bloc, and Asian influences all throughout Russia. Considering that they border from China, India, and Mongolia, and all these um, countries in the south, you can see their influence. Even on the far eastern side of Russia, where there are territories where Japan has influence there, you can see all that. So their culture is very, very diverse and very, very beautiful. Even their locations is stunning beyond the fact just for the sheer fact that a lot of it has yet to be put on film, just due to the vast size of Russia. So as we continue to look at this place, let's consider some of these locations for the film. In terms of cost, because of the big difference between the U.S. dollar and the Russian ruble, you're looking at a great exchange rate, which would benefit us more on location and filming there in Russia. The political climate between our country and Russia is very, very tense, and that's mostly due to the episode that happens in the Ukraine. So like I said, if we were able to film there and to show that not everybody thinks the same way as our own politicians, then maybe that could help bridge a gap between our two nations. It would, could definitely be, in a sense, a peaceful operation. Granted, it's going to be an action-packed film full of car chases, violence, and explosions, but at the same time, we can sit there and we can show the Russian culture and people there. And because of the diversity of the Russian cultures and so many different atmospheric cultural climates, we have a large variety that we can choose from. So this is why I believe that if we're going to film, Russia is definitely the place to go.